Okay. Shh. Mouths closed. We are recording, please. Yes. All right. So to start with, we have. Come on, you. Positive correlation. Okay. Now, a positive correlation. Some of you, we were messing with those, and honestly, I've never seen those tables like that before on yesterday. But one of the things that was throwing us off kind of was if numbers were increasing or decreasing. Guys, the increasing and the decreasing is not what says this is positive. What tells you positive is same direction. Okay? They both might be increasing, they both might be decreasing. But if they're both doing the same thing, then your correlation is positive. One of the things you've got to remember from a few months back, I guess, independent and dependent. I'm telling you, they're flats. How would you fall? I'm telling you.
Did you ever just fall in there?
I did. And I'm just wearing flat shoes. So how much sense does that make?
Maybe
All right, let's use the problem that you guys have seen 1,001 times.
1 billion times.
Grades and
Score. Grade in hours.
Whoa.
okay. Who would go on the x-axis and who would go on? Who is my independent and who is my dependent variable?
Hours study is independent.
X is independent, Y is dependent.
That's true. X is independent and Y is dependent. Perfect. So who's going on X?
She was talking about those.
Which of these is going to go on? Remember, time is always independent. So that means that I'm going to put my hours on here and my grades
Right there.
I can get this
I'm
bit
going
on.
to go this on here.
I can get this.
What?
I can get this.
The pencil?
Yeah.
Yes.
What's
You
that?
probably just chipped the thing on it. All right. So one of the things you're going to have to do on the test is give me a full out statement, right?
Oh.
About using the words increasing and decreasing and using the variables. So you could say this is positive, so you could say as the hours studied increases, the grade increases, right? What if the hours studied decreases? Then the grade decreases, right? It's a positive correlation because no matter what way you look at it, it's the same direction. Okay? If one goes up, the other goes up. One goes down, the other goes down. Both of them going down is still a positive correlation. Because what happens when you divide two negatives? That's a positive, right? So this is a positive correlation. Remember, independent is always going and dependent. And please remember, it just makes life so much easier if you keep that little nugget in your brain. Any kind of time measurement, anytime I'm measuring time, that's always going to be independent. I don't even have to think about it. I can put whatever that is. Yes,
How do you know if it's a positive line?
because it's going up.
How do you know if it's going
She
up?
would feel.
Okay, so how do you read? You start at the left side of the page and you go to the,
Right. So if it's negative going.
if you start at the left and you go to the right, it goes up. and that's positive.
So what a neighbor line look like?
So that's going to be coming down this way.
That's real motivation.
All right, so you see how all of these points, we got a good amount of data points, and they're all pretty close knit together, right? Not a lot of loose ends out there. So another thing we're going to be talking about is this is a strong correlation, okay? Sometimes,
Strong. Because it's stuck together.
maybe it will look like that. Well, guys, it's still positive because eventually it does just increase. But it's kind of very few data points. It's not a whole lot of data points, and they're spread out, right? So we would say this is a weak correlation. This is a weak correlation, okay? If there's a lot and they're tightly put together, we have strong. If they're loose and kind of all over and you almost tempted to say there's no correlation, then it's a weak, okay? All right, negative. From the left to the right, that cloud is moving down. So I have a negative correlation. Now, again, it's not because anybody in particular is positive or negative. It's negative if my variables are going in the opposite direction. If they're going in the opposite direction, it's going to be negative. As one is increasing, the other is decreasing. I'm not sure if it was on MobiMax or if it was in the e-learning, but you had a problem with the weather. Now, when it's cold outside, I start with the t-shirt, and then I put on a sweater shirt, and then I put on a jacket and a scarf and a hat. Am I going to wear all of that extra stuff on a hot day?
No.
So as the temperature goes up, the layers of clothes go down, right? As the temperature decreases, the layers of clothes increase. They're going in opposite directions. That's what gives you a negative. It doesn't matter who, but one of them is going one direction and one is going the other. That gives you a negative. Yes, ma'am.
So what happens if they don't move up or down? What if they just kind of stay?
Well, remember we have a zero slope. But, so you're, something like that. So that's going to be a 0.
Is that going to be on our test?
No. The only thing you would say about that would be that it's linear. Again, you have the something like that.
I'm going to solve this, not positive.
Still negative,
It's weak. It's
but there's
more
not
correlation.
much. It is a negative correlation because it does move on down, but it's weak.
Hey, no, one new.
Right. That's weak.
Weak for it.
This is strong.
Somebody said it was up for it.
This is strong, and this is weak.
I need to e-learn. I need to
Okay.
for sure.
All right. Now, if I have my other two, make sure you get that. When it's just all over the place, then I have no correlation. Your shoe size and the number of siblings you have.
They don't go with each other.
No. Your brothers and sisters don't have anything to do with your feet, and your feet don't have anything to do with them. No correlation. Now, sometimes we get a curve. And if you see a curve, you're not going to be talking about positive. You're not going to be talking about negative. You're going to say non-linear. because there is a pattern going here. It is kind of grouped together. And it is moving in a direction, but there's a curve in that direction. There's no direction in any of this up here. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be considered a non-linear one if it curves.
If it curves, it's nonlinear. Yes, sir. Somebody today had a non-passing grade. They made up a test that they had a 0 on. And when they made up that test, now they have a passing grade. Even though they didn't do very well on that test, they now have a passing grade. If you are looking at your eye now and you are missing a test, you have got to get in here and get it made up.
We got bad grades.
Your grade is your job. Caught up?
No, oh yeah, you did.
All right, last thing I want to talk about on here is this line of best fit. Guys, there is no exact answer for line of best fit. Best fit, the best you can do. Now, you do not want to, you're not trying to touch points. You're not trying to get through as many points as possible. You're trying to get centered. Okay? You want your line of best fit to be in the middle as much as possible. Come on.
I thought mine was best fit. You were trying to say me wrong.
No, you're really not. You're really just trying to get in the middle of as many of them as possible.
One of my teachers told me.
If this is coming down through here, you're off. That don't make any sense. If you were up, if you took the whole thing up, it's off. Now, if you get centered as close to as many of them as possible, you're on. Now, does that mean that everybody in the classroom has got to draw the exact same line?
No.
No, but it's got to make sense, right? It's got to be centered through there. I've seen people draw a line of best fit. Would you consider that centered? I mean, look at all of these up here and down here. I'm not even close to. Okay? Do you all understand what I'm talking about when I say center? Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about,
What if somebody put a center like on the movie?
I think the center is in the middle.
I'm saying like they put it on the movie or they eat it in straight up.
No, that wouldn't be center, right? I'm not going to, there is going to be some play in these answers. We're not all going to have the exact line, but it's got to be centered well, okay? All right, so what are some of the questions on Thursday's test?
No.
I got how. Bro, I got a whole 98.
Okay, so to start with, what would you call this? What type of correlation, if any, would you say?
Positive.
This is a positive, okay? So that would be one question I would ask you about this graph. Another question I would ask you about this graph is give me a statement about the relationship between the dog's height and the dog's weight. What could you say? Do you want to use the words increasing and decreasing, or do you want to use the variables on the sides?
Oh, we gotta use.
Height and weight.
I ain't gotta say inches. Down. And the dog's height increases. The dog's weight.
There you go. As the height increases, the weight increases, right? And you could say it the other way around too. As the dog's weight decreases, as the dog's height decreases, the weight is going to decrease, right? The bigger the dog, the more it weighs. The smaller the dog, the more it weighs, the less it weighs, right? You can say it either way. All right, what if I said, okay, my dog is 20 inches tall? Here again, this is not 3 + 4 = 7. There is not going to be one exact answer. If my dog is 20 inches tall, about what should he weigh approximately?
17 pounds.
17. So if I go to 20,
That's 20.
wait a minute,
It's like right here.
Well-
18. I'm thinking.
wait a minute, go back. All right. First thing I would want to do to answer this is I'm going to draw that line of best fit. Okay? And the accuracy of your answer, should I start my line up over here? I'm going to come down here where I have most of these, and my line's going to go through there. Now, I'm going to estimate where my 20 is because here's 18 and there's 21, so I'm going to say 19, 20. And I'm going to go up to my line of best fit. And then I'm going to go over to my Y axis. So if my dog is 20 inches tall, about what do I expect him to weigh?
78 pounds.
48.
Oh, so what is that dot right there?
What is what dot right where?
That line right there. Right there. Over. That dot.
Okay, so if that is 20, then we're at 17. But we're not looking at one specific dot, right? This is a set of data.
Oh, so we gotta write like on the test. We gotta write like all of them.
We're gonna use that line of best fit.
So whatever dot is on the line, basically.
Draw your line.
So we gotta do the dot that's in the middle, basically.
Right? Because this is not a straight line problem. Dogs aren't going to weigh exactly. There's all kinds of other. What do they feed them at home? I mean, they're not going to weigh the same thing. So you're going to use that line of best fit. Draw your line up to that line of best fit and go over to your Y axis. Okay? All right, so let's look at video game time and sleep time. What could you tell me about it? Sleep time, video game time. Give me a statement. You're going to have to write for me something on, is it a positive or negative? Negative. So the more time spent on video games,
The less time you get to sleep.
the less time I have for sleep.
Wait.
Right? No correlation. All right, so imagine you drawing, let's go ahead and draw a line of best fit. And I'm going to start it up here and come through because it's not really going down.
It's a 0.
Yeah. Remember, I want it in the middle as much as possible. Now, this is a real tight grouping. It's almost a straight line. So would you call that a strong or a weak? It is strong. It is a strong correlation. All right. let's say that I have 15 years of experience. What would my expected salary be?
I can't see.
The best of fit line is not gonna run through what's the name?
So if I take my 15 and I go up to my line of best fit and I go over somewhere between 35 and 40, so
38.
37 and a half, 38, 39, okay? You're gonna have some estimating there,
Never mind, 36.
but you're gonna have to make some sense when you're estimating. All right, so you're gonna have the rest of class to finish up your Moby Max or something for another class if you need to, or looking in your eye now, sending me that email, Miss Graham, I would like to make up blah, 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 blah.
When we gotta turn it in?
What?
Like, when is the last day we can do that? I know.
The last day you can tell me about it is gonna be this Thursday. When it'll be made up will be probably like Tuesday next week. But you're not gonna tell me next week, oh, I forgot to say I wanted to make that up to you. Get to looking and decide on it.
Did you post another another Moby Max? Or
No, I'm talking about the scatter plot Moby Max.
I did that.
Did you only post one?
Hmm?
Did you only post one?
Hold on.
Yeah. Look in your eye now.
Hey, Miss Girl.
What?
Miss Mortimer told gave us a quiz on something that we need to watch. Before we make it fly.
Well, that makes sense to me. Like I told you at the beginning of the class, sometimes a real smart thing for you to do would be to
It's hard to do that though.
all right. Try now. Practice on it right now.
Practice on it. What do you mean?
Hold on for me 1 second. Now,
What are we supposed to do, bro?
shh.
Girl, what are we supposed to do?